Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about Bitcoin's bull run and what comes next. I'm going to talk about this more in a feeling or emotion sort of philosophy of like what you're going to feel, who you're going to see while the Bitcoin bull run continues. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Ledin. Ledin is one of my sponsors. They're a great place to borrow against your Bitcoin using it as collateral and getting stable coins or lending it out and earning a yield. Okay, let's go ahead and hop back in. So this is a newsletter that I write on Thursdays called The Held Report. It's an exclusive newsletter for my paid subscribers. It comes out on Thursday. So if you want to hear these thoughts first, subscribe there. You also get a vote on the next topic and you get access to all the archives. Okay, so, and that link is below here in the description, or you'll see a button up here. All right, so I wrote this on Thursday, and I kind of feel like I'm dating myself a little bit in terms of age. I've been through three bull and bear markets, so it's been a lot over the last 8 years. And I love this quote from Mark Twain where he says, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." And so I think, with this bull run, there's a lot of things that I'm seeing that are similar. That feels very similar to like 2013, right? Price goes from $10 to $260 in March, then goes sideways at $100 for 6 months, and then towards the end of the year has another bull run. And so that feels very similar to right now. And as you go through this, there's a lot of feelings, emotion, and that's what I'm going to touch on here. And, you're going to have funny moments like high school acquaintances reaching out and asking if they should get into Bitcoin, the bizarre feeling of being much wealthier than you were before, and of course the anxiety of like checking your cold storage to make sure it's still there. And like I mentioned before, I'm going to touch on kind of the more personal aspects, and you can kind of think about this as like, I'm hoping to help be a little bit of a HODLer spirit guide for you. I've HODLed before, it's not easy. And so I'm going to give you some of my tips and tricks and just kind of highlight some of the things that you're going to go through. Okay, so people that you meet in a Bitcoin bull run, the critic, they suffer from something called Bitcoin derangement syndrome. So what Bitcoin derangement syndrome represents is an increasingly high level of saltiness or bitterness as Bitcoin price goes higher. These people say that you were lucky, Bitcoin's a bubble. These people include family. These aren't just like TV personalities. It could include family, friends, lovers, coworkers. I've heard it all. Now, these have died down a little bit as Bitcoin has continued to succeed and is being recognized globally as a Gold 2.0 or store of value asset. But this wasn't, back in the early days, you were kind of considered a lunatic if you were into Bitcoin. So here's some funny examples. You've got Matt O'Brien, and he goes, Bitcoin's only actual use is as an investment for tech bros who don't understand monetary policy. Cool. You're free to be wrong. We've got our classic dinosaur Peter Schiff, and he likes to talk about how Bitcoin sucks and that gold is great. You got Nouriel Roubini saying that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Well, pro tip, neither does the dollar. And then you have like Paul Krugman, and Paul Krugman as well, calling it tulips, which of course, and he wrote this in 2018, well, he's famously wrong again. And so these are those Bitcoin derangement critic types. Then there's the cautious optimist. The cautious optimist is someone who goes, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm going to wait to buy the dip. What it means is that they have bullshit for conviction. They're a terrible trader and investor, and they do this with all their investments, is they overanalyze it, and they'll never jump in and take the risk. These types also like to call top or bottom, but of course they're not trading it, they're not investing, so they don't profit off of any of this. Here's an old meme that was in the space in the 2013 era of people waiting to buy the dip. If you wait to buy the dip, you may never see a dip. And so that's why people do dollar cost averaging or other techniques to reduce that anxiety around placing the trade. And then there's the I'll buy anything friend. So this is the sort of friend who will literally buy anything. The next new thing that comes up, the next thing he hears about on any podcast or forum post or tweet from a bot, they're going to go buy it. Don't indulge these folks in conversation. They're going to want to dive down stupid rabbit holes where they go into some obscure, crazy, weird thing, like blockchain solving cancer or something like that. You'll find these as well. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Choice, one of my sponsors. As most of you know, when you HODL, you don't have to pay taxes. But what if I told you that you could HODL, and when you eventually sell your Bitcoin, you wouldn't have to pay any taxes then? Well, I didn't think that was possible until I found a Choice IRA. Choice is the best retirement account to set up for Bitcoiners that lets you buy and hold Bitcoin in stocks without paying a dime to the government. And how does that work? Choice is an IRA. They have IRAs and Roth IRAs, which means it's a special type of retirement account where you don't pay taxes if you HODL until a certain age, along with some other stipulations. And the best part, you can self-custody your Bitcoin with Choice, which means that You don't have to trust Choice or anyone else with your Bitcoin or your private keys. It's the perfect retirement solution for Bitcoiners. The best time to start stacking sats was 11 years ago. The second best time is today. Search StackSats in the App Store or choiceapp.io/held. Link is included in the description below. Go check it out right now. All right, so those are kind of like your primary characters you're going to encounter in this journey. And this next part's like a guide to hodling or like your own Bitcoin investment itself. So the crypto gains are crazy, right? Like Bitcoin is moving from, 10, like you've got 10x, 100x, 1000x gains. I mean, when we look at Bitcoin's log chart, it's just insane to think about, Bitcoin in 2011 was like $10, right? In 2012 was like $10. It's so crazy because when you zoom out, you're like, man, this is wild. And with these other new crypto assets, you see a crazy return as well. So, personally, I feel that Bitcoin is the best return per unit of risk. So like just hodling Bitcoin's probably your best bet. You could outperform Bitcoin with an altcoin, but good luck picking the right one. And I think that Bitcoin's promise for the world as a global sound money is increasingly becoming apparent. It's got strong product market fit, huge network effect. That's why I'm a big fan of it. But hodling just Bitcoin is tough. It's hard to resist the call to trade for another coin that's pumping. Whatever coin they may be, there's a coin that's pumping and you're like, oh man, there's all this enthusiasm and excitement. And then the narrative gets crafted around why the coin is pumping. What's funny is that narrative didn't really exist before and you didn't hear about it before until it started to pump. The price pump was the signal. And so that's where, hodling just Bitcoin is extremely tough. In the wise words of all the Bitcoin OGs of like just hodl was really true because you had all these random coins that are going up and it's very tempting to go buy the latest, hottest, greatest, thing. I love this quote from Jesse Livermore. Jesse Livermore is this badass OG day trader. He's kind of like considered one of the best traders of all time. He's a pioneer of day trading. Didn't exactly have a great life. His life ended in suicide. So I'm not sure if you want to become some of these things you may want to take with a grain of salt. But I think some of his principles around investing are really interesting. So here's a good quote from him. He goes, "It is no trick to be right on the market. I've known many traders who were right at exactly the right time and began buying or selling stocks when prices were at the very level they should show the greatest profit. And their experience invariably matched mine. That is, they made no real money out of it. Traders who can both be right and sit tight are uncommon. I found it one of the hardest things to learn. But it is only after a stock operator has firmly grasped this that he can make big money." And so what he's saying here is that, hodling is one of the hardest things to do. It's easy to pick the right investment, but then to hodl and weather through it, not get distracted and just actively trade is really, really tough. And this other quote he has is great where he talks about, "There is the Wall Street fool who thinks he must trade all the time. Not many can have adequate reasons for buying and selling stocks daily or sufficient knowledge to make his play an intelligent play." And I think this is a really good piece of trading and investment advice, which is that, when you choose to enter an investment, you should think about moments or information that might change your perspective on the investment and use those as moments you might consider trading. For me, Bitcoin, I haven't seen any reason why I should sell. So I've hodled it for this whole time. I think that the ROI in terms of its TAM, the total addressable market that it's going after, is huge. And I don't see a ton of risks. There certainly are risks, but I don't see a ton of them, at least ones that would make me worried enough to sell. So what he's saying here is, take a breath, zoom out, and learn how to hodl. And, a lot of people too come to me and they're like, "Hey, Dan, I trade alts to get more Bitcoin." That's cool if you want to do something like that. It's very hard to do. Back in 2013 when I first got in, I tried to buy and sell Bitcoin and time the dips, and I wasn't very good at it. I didn't get more Bitcoin, let's put it that way. Now, the hard part about this isn't actually getting into the trade. The hard part's getting out because you don't have an exit strategy. And, personally, again, I'd only recommend holding Bitcoin myself, but, you're free to buy whatever you like. And so what do I mean by that? Okay, let's say you buy a certain coin and the coin goes up 100%. Life is good, right? And you decide to hodl versus flipping those gains back into Bitcoin. So let's say Bitcoin was flat in that duration. But then the coin drops 50%. That goes back to your cost basis, the original price you bought it at. And you still decide to hodl because you didn't have an exit plan. Then it goes below your cost basis. What will you do? Well, they likely still hodl. And so then you're in this really tricky situation where you're underwater. And so what you really need here is an exit strategy. When you go into the position, have different prices or moments in which you believe that you should leave the position or sell or take some money off the table, because otherwise it's really easy to get too greedy and ultimately lose. And even with Bitcoin, if you plan on hodling forever, make sure you have a plan here too. Maybe taking some risk off the table at some point, or whatever will make you happy. I mean, I personally haven't sold any Bitcoin, but of course I've bought stuff with Bitcoin, but like a large sale or anything like that. For this, I think like a lot of people go, oh, well, I'm going to hodl for forever. And I'm certainly going to hodl mine as long as I can. But I do borrow dollars against my Bitcoin as collateral, or I lend it out. Like I said before, I do this with Ledin. That's, I think, a really good strategy to at least like still hold on to those gains, but then be able to live off of it, which is super cool. You could also decide to sell covered calls or actually sell some. Look, you don't live for forever. Personally, I don't think it's I'm a big believer in hodling. I think Bitcoin has a lot more upside, but that's a personal belief and not investment advice. Okay. And then finally, staying healthy in the bull run. So the bull run's really intense. I mean, you're going to have all these emotions. You're going to have family and friends say you're wrong or you're crazy, and to some extent they're a little bit right. But you're also, you got into this position earlier and now you're being validated by the market coming to realize that this is a good investment. And there's a ton of temptation to sell, take on more risk, like get super levered. Do whatever you need to do to get your mind and body in the right place to survive this journey. This is a really intense journey. Make sure that you're not overstretching yourself or putting yourself in a very bad position. And finally, kind of like connect with family and friends, zoom out to see the bigger picture of life in general, work out, take breaks, whatever you got to do. And then finally, hodl. Hope you liked this journey on the emotional side of what it's like to go through a bull run and the characters that you might meet. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to my channel or like this. It helps with the algorithm, helps get my message out to more people. If you like this and you want to read it on Thursdays, remember my newsletter link is below. Cheers.